Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, it's good morning for those in Eastern time zone. Welcome to our fourth charge automation live session. And we're very, very lucky to have with us Hospitable. We have Miles. I'll do a little quick intro in a second here. Let's move on to the next slide. Actually, it's probably the best thing to do here. So there's three of us here today. We have Miles Hobson, who is head of marketing from Hospitable, and he's joined us on this particular live session. And of course, we have Austin Bernhardt, our account executive. If you have any questions about charge automation, he's your man to talk to. And of course, myself, Nick Reddy, marketing and growth, also here at Charge Automation, and also property manager. I'm always told to say that as well. And of course, I have my Hospitable socks, which are very, very important to have those. So today we're going to be talking about payments. It's something that we probably should have spoken about a long, long time ago. It's a big, big thing for charge automation. And what's amusing is that we haven't mentioned much of this yet. So before we dive into all of this, again, we'll just give you a quick overview of the session, how it's all going to work. So again, 25 minutes, we'll be just chatting. It is just, let's call it an informal discussion. Obviously, we have some various points that we want to kind of go through, but we'll just be talking about the topic. Miles will be giving his insights from Hospitable's point of view. And we'll be talking about really here different payment methods, multilingual content, which is really, really key when you kind of combine all these elements together. You might be wondering why. But of course, how all these elements can combine to help improve your upsell conversion and pretty much any conversion on your product. We'll then finish up with a Q&A. And of course, if you have any questions early, please feel free to add those to the list. I'll be keeping an eye on those. Okay, so let's jump into things. So, let's jump into things. Let's talk about the products first. I think it's really important here. So let's talk about charge automation very, very quickly. We've spoken about this many times, but essentially we're a guest platform for short-term property managers. Essentially, we offer the whole check-in to check-out experience. We have an absolute seamless integration with Hospitable, which is awesome. We also offer that multilingual content, which we mentioned before, upsells, payment gateways, for 160 payment gateways, 100 different payment methods. But of course, we offer various other features such as e-deposits, guidebooks, rental agreements, smart look integration. So we have a whole host of features there. And of course, Miles, I'm going to let you talk about Hospitable.
Cool. Thank you very much, Nick. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on for starters. And then, I guess a little bit about Hospitable. So if you've not heard of us before, we are property management software for short and mid-term rentals. We obviously do all of the usual things like syncing your calendar, your inbox across Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, and a bunch of other places. But something that we're really kind of strong at and kind of core to our kind of software is AI communication. And so kind of automating your messages for you, and also doing that across different languages. I think we have 29 languages on that list. Don't ask me to name them all, I will get it wrong. But yeah, plenty of scope there for kind of making sure that you're localizing your communication. We also obviously do direct booking websites. And so something there that some hosts already know about Hospitable will know is that we have a direct premium option, which is essentially where we we are the merchant of record and we're kind of handling those payments for you, and you have damage protection and guest vetting built in. And that's in the UK, US, and Australia. But if you're not in those countries and you don't want damage protection and guest vetting built in, we have a direct basic option, which uses Stripe. And so we'll probably get onto it a little bit later, but we do often kind of point people to charge automation if they are in a country where Stripe isn't offered, or if they're looking to kind of offer more localized payment solutions to their guests as well. So I think that kind of links us up nicely to kind of why we're joining this session to talk about payments and localizing the flow.
Nice. That's very cool. It's a really in-depth product, actually. It's really, really cool. It looks very slick, especially when you see it from the outside as well. So really, really cool. Okay, well, let's carry on that topic, obviously. Payments is such a key thing here. I'm going to start with a stat. This is what I mentioned to Miles before, and I think it's really important that we kind of keep this stat in our minds the whole time. And that is up to 74% of guests will essentially abandon a booking if their preferred payment method isn't available. You go to a site and let's say an extreme case, you haven't got a card payments available, they'll abandon it, even though there's bank transfer, even though there's various other methods. If they haven't got their preferred method, they're going to leave that booking and find somewhere else which is more convenient for them. And I think this is why it's so key that they have those payment methods available. A really great example is in Brazil. Pix is the standard. It might not feel like the standard in Europe, but if you don't have Pix, it's so hard to survive online and to take those bookings. So having those local payment methods is absolutely essential. And I guess, with Hospitable, I mean, you guys, you've come to us a number of times, Miles, on this particular point, whereby, they really need to find a method that works for them. So, okay, let's move on to the next slide. Oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
No, it's all right. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so let's talk about why payment flexibility matters. I think that's the key thing here. So we kind of got this in mind that obviously local payment methods, they matter, and we need to kind of keep tabs on that. So why? I think it's very key here, and again, this comes back to the same question I was asking you here just Miles. People expect something that's familiar. If they don't see a payment method that they know and understand, they will question it and they'll lose a lot of trust in that, because they have to sign up for a new system. They maybe have to download a new application or app to make it work, whatever it might be. And they might not want to do that. And in many cases, people don't trust card payments. I find people, they don't want to use their cards. They want to use something else. And I'm curious on your end, Miles, how that's kind of panned out in with your clients as well.
Yeah, for sure. We certainly see that. And, abandoned bookings happen, unfortunately. And we do, try to recover them the best we can. We have an email automation that I think has been launched for about 7 months, and we've recovered $1.5 million in reservations from that. But ultimately, the card issues are something that can't be overcome if you don't pre-plan for it. If that's the reason they're abandoning, and it's a case of you don't have the offering for their local payment solution, just bringing them back with an email is not going to be enough, because you're not going to resolve that issue for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just going to have continual problems, and obviously you're going to struggle actually generating your revenue that way. So, I mean, like I said, the common pain points, I kind of listed a couple here, but it's not just limited to this, but you're going to get things like card declines because you haven't got a familiar card. You got abandonment, which is obviously what we've just spoken about now. And the last part, which is hesitance. If you don't know that payment flow, there's a lot of mistrust even nowadays, even though people make payments all the time online. It's one of these things that people really do. They have a lot of trust issues with it. So having something which they're familiar with is very important.
Yeah. I also think it's kind of justified why they have so much, worry about card payments, is because, there's tons of fraud out there, right? There's tons of reason to be wary of entering cards. And right when they get to a portal that doesn't have that payment flow or that payment option that they're the most comfortable with, well, then they're going to start second guessing. Those red flags are going to start popping up. And then, even trying to get them back, like Miles, that the email campaign to hold them back into the flow and get them to, that's fantastic that it worked. But there's also going to be a certain subset of those guests that just, they've already kind of made their decision about this platform and they don't want to use it anymore. Mm-hmm. So like those ones, to nip that at the bud and make sure that you do have those payment options available, that's definitely the best way to move forward.
Yeah. One other thing I think as well is currency as well. I think if you don't have the right payment option, you might not always see the currency that they're familiar with as well. And again, this compounds the issue over and over and over again. So I think from the outset, I think it's very quickly to see, by not having those local payment options, you're going to start having a lot of issues, and you're going to impact your revenue conversion, or your booking conversion, your revenue. You're going to be struggling really at the end of the day. And one other point again, which is an interesting one here that I was digging around about, with this particular topic, and that is with regards to local regulations. So, for example, if you have, again, coming back to local payments, you're going to have a platform which is locally regulated. You're going to have less issues with it in terms of KYC, trying to get all those payments approved. You're not going to have payments on hold, etc. You're going to be able to process them a lot faster, and that's better for the guests as well. So, again, it seems to all compound together.
Yeah, and one point I was going to add on flexible payment options as well is probably kind of payment terms. So
Yeah.
again, it's kind of like different cultures maybe more used to kind of paying everything up front, and certain parts of the world more expecting to kind of like pay things in installments, right? And kind of do things on credit essentially. So it's kind of making sure you have that optionality as well, I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's true. Yeah, I get that on my properties sometimes. So even over here in Spain, it happens. Okay, so let's talk about some examples. I think we've got a number here. And I want to start again with another quote, because I think a lot of these elements, people say, well, you talk about this stuff, how do you back it up? Well, this was actually a large-scale experiment done by Stripe some time ago. And basically, they saw that when they used payment methods beyond cards, they saw a rise of 12% in conversion, which is a huge number if you think about it. At the end of the day, it's 12% increase. And sorry, say that again. Essentially, they saw revenue rise by 12%, but their conversion itself rose by 7.5%, or just under 7.5%, 7.4%. And you put that into context. If you are generating, I don't know, let's just say 100,000 in revenue annually, that's 7.4% increase. That's $7,400 additional revenue by using just the correct payment method and making sure that you're accommodating your local guests. That's a huge difference. But in addition, you're going to see a lot more protections on your side. You're going to see less failures. You're going to see less declines, less fraud, etc. So making sure you have one of these options available is very, very important. So these are just an example. I don't know. Again, Miles, on your end, I mean, if there are any others on there that kind of stand out to you, but just curious on your side, in terms of what people ask for. I put here Pix, Klarna. These are the big ones in in Brazil, Europe, but it's a global thing that you've got to really adapt for.
Yeah, I think those are actually some of the key ones we see. Pix for sure. It's Latin American countries. There's obviously a massive market there. There's a lot of people, and so we definitely see that a lot. And so obviously we send those people your way, obviously very frequently. I think weekly probably.
Well, okay. I mean, like I said, it's not just Pix, of course. I mean, Pix is Brazil. Like, you go to Colombia, you have Mercado Pago. And we have various other options which kind of work there. So again, in the South American markets, it's key to be able to kind of accommodate those. And it differs, by the way, by region. Just to really complicate things further, if you go to Central America, you've got completely different payment options. And you just think, well, hang on, you're just next to this. No, it's completely different. Everything changes as you kind of gradually go south. It just adds further complications. And then we have the same thing in Asia as well. You have options in Asia. If you want to operate over there, for example, in China, WePay Chat, Alipay, these are absolutely crucial to actually have over in the Asian markets. Without them, you're going to really, really struggle. So it's key to have that. Awesome. Let's move on then. So let's talk about a little bit of about obviously security. This is a big point that Austin brought up when we were putting these slides together, just getting all the key points together. And it's something that we added in because I realized we're talking about all these payment options, but security is absolute key here, making sure that you have this in place. Austin, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Yeah, of course. So the biggest reason why there are so many different payment processors out there is because each of these companies has their own definition of risk and what that risk looks like. So when you're moving, like Nick mentioned, like down south, the risk changes, and making sure that you, the property manager, has enough security and and trust that's been built is super important. So making sure that we have 3D secure on all major cards is a really big piece, because when you're able to 3DS secure a card, you now know that card holder actually is the owner of said card, and that means that you're not going to see a chargeback happen saying that's hey, sorry, my card was stolen, I never made this booking, and now you're out that money because they've issued a chargeback. We've noticed, of course, like Nick mentioned before, he's in Europe, he sees a ton of 3DS secure, right, Nick? Like, this is something that's very common in the Europe.
Yeah. This is the thing, right? This is what caught me off guard as well when we're discussing the topic, and I've worked in payments quite some time, and the thing is, 3D secure has been the de facto standard. I don't know, Miles, what your thoughts on this as well, but on my end, I've used 3D Secure now probably 20 years, but it doesn't seem to be the standard across the pond over in the US, and that's kind of concerning. And I understand why fraud and chargebacks are so prevalent. So using platforms that offer that protection are absolutely key here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm curious, Miles, on your end as well, because like I said, it's something that caught me totally off guard here when obviously discussing this particular one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's the 3DS piece, but then there's also kind of even thinking about going above and beyond that. So like, yeah, if you're having rental agreements, security deposits, vetting guests, it's really kind of thinking about those. It's kind of protection for you as a host, but then it does give those trust signals to guests as well, that you are a legitimate outfit, that you're asking this kind of stuff. And it's not just, here's a property, here's where you put your card details kind of thing. It's like that kind of looks a bit more like it's a bit of a scam, right? So it's having kind of multiple trust signals along the way, along with things like reviews, that kind of thing. I think it's super important for host and guest combined for security for both of them.
Mm-hmm. And I think also kind of obviously when you have, let's talk about Stripe for a second. When you see big names like Stripe, it does add a lot of confidence as well, knowing that there is you're going to a secure link as well, being able to kind of highlight that you're going onto a secure page. I mean, all pages nowadays are secure. And again, many people forget that, SSL is enforced across every site that we visit nowadays. If SSL is not on the site you're visiting, I suggest you leave instantly. But having said that, it's important that, you have recognized payment providers. And again, that adds on top of that layer of trust you're talking about there, Miles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And last thing about like that whole security aspect, when you are doing, like you said, Miles, like the rental agreement, security deposits, ID verification, all this becomes a nice big, data profile that you've created on your guest, which is really important in the case, probably on everyone else's mind. It's like, sure, okay, we're not going to have fraudulent chargebacks where a card has been reported stolen, and that's why I'm getting a chargeback. But the other types of chargeback, the friendly fraud, when they're kind of talking about, oh, I didn't like my stay, it wasn't clean enough. Having this full-fledged profile of your guest really helps fight back against those disputes, and making sure that you do have a full-fledged rental agreement signed. These are things that also not only build that trust with your guests, but also protect you in the end. And
I just want to add, sorry, Miles, please carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you on that, Austin, and kind of having that package of information, as you said. So as I kind of mentioned at the start of our premium offering, and having damage protection and guest vetting in, essentially, like, that is a protection for the host, but it's also because we want and need that information because we are the merchant of record. So if there is any chargeback, we have to go and dispute that. And that's the information that we require. Right? We need to see and show that they took a photo of the ID kind of thing. It was them that stayed in that property. Here's the proof. And so, like, we encourage, obviously, hosts to be doing that. Even if you're not kind of choosing our option to do that, you should consider adding those steps and having that, picture of that person that's coming. It's, you need more than just like a successful transaction. You're going to need the evidence to back up in case there are any kind of those chargebacks, friendly or fraudulent.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'm going to add actually for all our listeners is that, and you might not be aware, and it's something that people aren't aware of, charge-ups can happen 3 months after a transaction has happened. And it's so key to have that information, store it, and make sure you can refer back to it, because you can get caught out. And I'm going to say it from first-hand experience, I have been caught out. And it cost my business €2,500 in one of the instances, which is a huge sum of money. You're talking close to $3,000. That's, I'm not a big business. I'm a small, short-term property rental business. And losing $3,000 of revenue, it hits you really, really hard. So it's absolutely key to kind of make sure that you have this information and, be prepared. It's hopefully not going to happen, but by having all these protections in place, it puts you in a very good position to fight that. And obviously make sure that you have everything the bank wants to say, hey, what did this really happen? And you've got everything documented there. So yeah, using platforms like ours, it's absolutely key.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next step, because obviously we're talking about the best practices again here. We've already kind of covered a lot of them. Obviously knowing the audience, research the guest markets, whether what kind of payment options they're going to want to have. Really key to just to know, what your market actually is. And in most cases, as a property manager, you're going to know that. So it's absolutely key to have that in place. And of course, mobile first. This is just advice on a general level for anybody, any short-term property manager. Most people do their bookings on their mobile phone. I mean, I don't even remember the last time I booked something even on using Booking or Booking.com or even Google. I just pick up my phone and browse a few sites, find a property I like, and I book it. I don't know about you guys. It seems to be the way forward now. And obviously, multi-currency transparency. So both our platforms, they have obviously multi-currency on there, and that's absolutely key, making sure you can provide that. So if you have somebody outside the country, absolutely key there. And we've already spoken about the whole fraud prevention element as well. They're making sure that's all in place. And then finally, just to save you time, automate as much as you can. If you're not automating, you're costing yourself time which could be spent somewhere else. That's absolutely key to remember that. So yeah, that's really key at this point. And obviously, platforms like ours, they offer that automation. So waiting, if you want to kind of charge 50% up front, if you want to charge the full amount up front, you can obviously you can define that. So it's all possible within both Hospitable and Charge Automation. So really key there. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, because that kind of summarizes all the payments. I think on that side, I don't know, guys, if you've got anything else to add.
I think so.
Yeah.
So I think the next point, really, now that we've covered the whole payment element, and again, payments is always a tricky topic because they struggle to understand it. Why do you want to do all these local payment options? And the key here is conversion. You want to drive revenue. So I don't know, Miles, if on your end, because obviously both, we both offer upsells, and maybe it'd be great to get your experiences from your clients, actually what they've seen by actually having a local payment method, and how that impacts upsells within their properties.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't really have any data, I guess, on local payments for upsells, but yeah, we certainly see kind of that impacts the direct conversion rate, direct booking conversion rate, and I'm sure it translates across to upsells. I'll have to go away and dig into the data there and see kind of the impact. But yeah, unfortunately, no juicy stat to share. But anecdotally, it's definitely a performance improver on kind of buying that extra item, buying that extra night on the end of their stay. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's I think it's logical to assume, and I have a couple of stats on one of the slides actually, but it is logical to assume that by having a payment option which is more familiar to guests, you're also going to translate not just to the rental agreement but to the actual upsell as well. And you're going to also see further upsells, because where they have less friction, they're going to come back to you time again. So you're also going to see both more upsells being sold, which I think is really key here, but also you're going to see those guests coming back to you down the line because you've offered what they want to see, or what they'd like to have, and you give them an experience that they're both comfortable with and they trust. So it all kind of adds up. All these little elements here, they all add up, and that's absolutely key here. So let's talk about a little bit about upsells as well, because obviously we wanted to talk about that, but we're going to go very briefly. Why upsells? Upsells are the big thing. Everyone talks about them, but the key thing here is making sure you get the right, let's say the right journey on upsells. So obviously before you want to be able to offer, for example, the taxi service, the early check-in, and again, having those payment options in place, it's all going to enable you to kind of sell these revenue opportunities to guests. So they're going to see things like, whatever an early check-in is, maybe $60 extra. That's $60 revenue. You got your taxi service. I don't know what commission you get on there. Say 10%. It's $100 for the taxi. That's another $10 you got there. And all these little elements, they all add up. So also during their stay, you want to be able to have food options, something I offer, bicycle rentals, whatever it might be that you can offer, massages. If you have something a bit more upmarket, you might want to offer champagne, whatever it might be. Again, being able to offer those during the stay. And of course, at the end, you have the whole taxi service home, maybe a late checkout. So you got to kind of put it into context. If you have a guest who's on holiday and they want to splurge, from an early check-in to a late checkout, if it's available, that's $120 potentially extra revenue, depending whatever you charge. If you say $60, plus you talk about the taxi commissions, but you've also offered a service which kind of makes that guest feel happier, more satisfied with their stay. Miles, I mean, again, in your side, Hospitable, you guys have got upsells on your end too. So of course, it's you must see this kind of this guest journey also.
Yeah, for sure. I think we kind of see everything you mentioned there. I think in terms of, again, it's kind of anecdotal, but in terms of kind of the biggest ticket item in terms of revenue is typically early check-in, late check-out. That seems to be kind of the biggest driver. In terms of kind of frequency of how much something's purchased, the food and beverage items, super popular. So you're not going to make a massive margin on them, but it's like super common that, you know, people arrive, check in, and they don't want to have to go back out to the store. They want to grab your movie packet that's like popcorn and snacks and that kind of thing, and they want to be able to kind of purchase that from you. So I think kitting the property out with kind of those special little extras, and just making it clear that it is an extra, and that you know, they can just jump on the guest portal to kind of buy that, or message you, or however you want to kind of automate it. That's super important, because it is, you know, over time it adds up for sure.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head there. I was going to say, actually, it's you know, you only see maybe like a $3 or $4 commission on each one of these small food items, but you know, if you get somebody, I don't know, you get 100 guests in a week, and you multiply that by 100, there you go. You've got quite a lot of revenue there, and then you multiply that by the number of weeks in a year, and you've got a significant sum of money, you know, revenue there that's just lying there waiting to be tapped into for very little effort as well. I think, you know, I'd say that too. Sorry.
So I was just going to say, and it adds to the guest experience as well, right? So you've gone and you've thought about that thing that they might end up needing, and again, it's saved them a trip out. They don't want to do that; they just want to relax.
And that adds to obviously better reviews at the end of the stay, and that's obviously what you need as well. And that again has a positive impact on the whole experience. It's just it's a circle, basically. You know, you just got to keep building on it. So yeah, absolutely. So I think really just to summarize on the whole upsell side of things, just because I'm conscious of time as well. We've been talking 26 minutes, believe it or not. But yeah, top performers, you know, let's stick with the early check-in, late checkout. Really important to do that. And as Miles, you mentioned, you know, little things like food options, convenience items, I think are the most important ones on there. You know, sometimes if you put a massage under a bottle of champagne, they might look great, and they are great to have on there, but they're not going to get sold often. Stuff that makes people happy and kind of makes their stay more convenient, I think, is the key thing. And of course, strategic timing, making sure that you display those upsell options at the relevant time, so you're not, you know, giving them that whole overwhelming choice of options. They know what there is. And coming back to that point as well, simplicity is key. So making sure you don't overwhelm them. Just have the items which, you know, sell well. If something doesn't sell well, it's sometimes worth removing it, which is what I've had to do as well with my own properties. So. Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's jump into the multilingual element, because I think ultimately that this all ties in together. All these elements, they all kind of they're all part of the same thing, really. And this is what I said. I had some stats on this one. This was a really interesting one, actually. So I did some deep research on various elements and in terms of booking and hospitality, and a lot of this comes from hotels, but I think it's relevant for short-term stays, and that is, you know, 72% of guests are more likely to return or more likely to book when the information is in their language. Because if you don't understand what you're reading, what are you getting? And of course, you can use Google Translate, but it doesn't always work accurately. Yeah, we all know that. You know, sometimes, you know, I've had things translated from one language into English, and I have no idea what it's trying to say. So this is really key to all of this. And Miles, you know, you mentioned obviously now with the AI messaging and you have in with Hospitable. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, and we now actually I'll get these languages correct: Spanish, French, and German. We actually automatically translate direct booking websites and the whole booking flow, and then obviously, you know, rental agreement, the guest portal, all the messages, automatically translated. And we launched that a few weeks ago. More languages on the way, but we've already seen a 30% increase in conversion rate for direct booking websites off the back of that launch. So yeah, it's kind of like it's a simple thing in a sense. Just, you know, translating the kind of the language of the website. Sounds simple, sounds easy kind of thing. Using AI to do that, just kind of customizing and localizing it to the guests without them even having to click a button. Just doing it based on their website browser just makes it feel like you are welcoming them, right? It's totally designed for them. It's kind of it's speaking their language.
No, totally,
literally. We love that. Treasure Automation, our flow does the exact same thing. You know, what's browser default? Let's set it to that, and then they always have the option to
exactly
as needed.
Nice.
which is great. Cool.
Yeah. No. And I think one thing I just want to give some anecdotal kind of experience on my end as well. I send out a daily message to all my guests through WhatsApp, and I was originally only doing it in Spanish and English because those are the two key languages for us. I'm based here in Spain. But we have a lot of Moroccans, we have a lot of French, we have a lot of French Canadians that come over to stay with us actually, which is quite nice. We've had Czech, all sorts. And I started translating all those messages, and instantly we saw a higher interaction rate. I'm not going to say what the conversion rate is because my staff, I need to go to them, and that's irrelevant. But what I did see straight away was people started replying back to us. The only interesting part on that end was they were replying back to us in their language. So we had to obviously work, and translate all of that using Google Translate or AI, whatever it might be, whatever my team were using. But absolutely, and what I'm trying to say here is that that localization, it really helps improve that guest experience. So like I said, also with Charles Automation, we support all those different languages as well. And we basically, as Austin said, depending on the language, the browser language, the user language, the content is delivered in their local language, and that obviously makes for a much more comfortable experience. So, again, combining both the Hospitable and Charge Automation together, you get a completely localized service, which is really, really key here. So that's really, really nice. Awesome. So let's kind of finalize, because I am conscious of time. We said 25 minutes. We're currently at 31 minutes. This always happens. I knew it would happen again, but here we go. Let's just quickly summarize this. So local payments, I think it's key. Payments are quite a scary topic for short-term for property managers. They're worried about the implementation. They're worried about the process of getting it all set up. It doesn't have to be complicated. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us. We're happy to help you and talk you through it. And it's not something that you have to worry about. Of course, by having those local payment methods, you are 100% going to increase conversion with your properties, and that's absolutely key. On the upsell side, I think everything, by having all these local payment options, by having all of that put together, you're going to see an increase in upsell conversion, and that's a given. I think it's really important to see that. And then finally, the multilingual element. Don't ever kind of think that multilingual content is not important. Don't rely on Google Translate. People to say, they'll use Google Translate on my site. Perhaps, but it doesn't always work reliably. So using built-in translation localizations, you're going to get a much better experience. So, when you combine both Hospitable and Charge Automation together, you've got a complete seamless multilingual platform. And that's going to translate to more trust, a better guest experience, better reviews, and somebody who wants to buy and obviously upsell more and convert better. It's a win-win situation. So it's absolutely key. Miles, any final comments on your side, or even Austin on your end as well?
I think you've done a great summary there, Nick. There's more to add.
Yeah, like when I look at everything we talked about, the big thing is trust, building a connection with your guest to deliver a better experience, and then you'll end up getting more revenue out of that guest because they trust this process that we've built together. So I think that's right on the nail.
Great stuff. Okay. Well, listen, let's move on to the final point, which is obviously our Q&A. I'm just going to quickly look in our platform to see if we've got any questions. Let me just quickly look right now. It's always a tricky one to jump in here. I'm going to hear myself when I do this as well, which makes it even worse. So at the moment, we have no questions at all, which we have about 14 people viewing. So I know there are people actually viewing the session right now. If you have any questions, feel free to add them in now, whether it be payment related, whether it be talking about upsells, localization, or in fact, any other point within either of our platforms. Feel free to ask those questions now. We've actually got one other viewer as well. Welcome. In fact, we've got two more viewers. Welcome. We've got the Q&A session. So we're talking about payments. We're talking about multilingual content. We're talking about upselling. Oh, we do have a question. So Frank. So let me just put that one on the screen. Fantastic. You got to kind of coax people to do this. They don't always want to say something. So you got to ask people to. Frank's question isn't coming up for some reason, but nevertheless, I can see it in front of me. I'll read it out. So he says, does Charge Automation support buy now, pay later programs like Klarna, Afterpay, or Affirm? These options are now game changers in the industry right now. So yes, we do. So those options are all available. And basically, it's part of the, you can do that by essentially enabling that for your region. Klarna is obviously a big one. That the whole buy now, pay later thing, as you mentioned earlier, Miles, is a big thing actually. It's something that's really, it's people are kind of looking into that more for their holidays, I guess. I've actually used it a couple of times when I bought a couple of Sonos speakers, but I've never done it for a holiday. I don't think I want to kind of push it that far for a holiday, but I know some people have those questions, those payment preferences. What about on the Hospitable side? I mean, on your end, I guess is that something your clients actually ask for a lot, or how does that work out?
Yeah. Currently, we don't kind of have like a Klarna or Afterpay included, but we do have the ability to kind of set your own payment terms. So in terms of instead of you receiving the money straight away as well, basically you can set it. I don't know, every 2 months there's an installment kind of thing, and the guest can spread out the payment in that sense, right? So we're not doing it through essentially an interest-based service, which I guess Klarna would be, but it is just kind of splitting out those payments in a similar fashion to what you can see on like an Airbnb booking, where you have the option to kind of split out the payments, pay half now, pay half later.
Right.
The host can kind of pick the option for how they want to split that up and what the terms are based on how generous they want to be and how incremental are those payments, and versus how much they prefer to get up front now.
Right, got you. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's really, really cool. I guess that gives you a lot of flexibility on that side, so that's a pretty nice one to have there. Good stuff. Carl Davis said he had no questions, but thanks us. So thank you, Miles, for those, or the feedback and the comments you added. Any other questions before we jump off and we kind of finish up, I guess? I always want to remind everybody that if you do have any questions, feel free to add them on the comments. And then any specific questions for Hospitable, please tag Hospitable on there as well, or tag Miles. I'm sure he'll jump into the conversation too. But yeah, otherwise, we don't have any other questions at all. Everyone's a little bit shy today. Never mind. We'll see what happens in the next session. All right. One thing I do want to say, though, firstly, thank you to Miles. Huge thanks to Miles and to Hospitable as well for joining us. We're also offering a special offer for all live session participants. So make sure that if you did join, you signed in as well as a participant, or just put something in the comments as well to let us know you were actually here during the actual session itself. And for those users, you get 3 months free on any annual charge automation plan. And we'll also offer an additional 25% off for 3 months on any Hospitable plan. So you have a complete solution right there. And I think it's a really great value starter pack if you are coming into this where you're looking for a new solution. If you want to use either of those offers, there is a QR code which you can scan right now, or you can use the link chargeautomation.com/book-a-demo, or go to hospitable.com/chargeautomation. And reach out to either one of our teams. There's Miles, of course, from Hospitable, or Austin from Charge Automation. Any parting comments at all, Miles, from yourself?
I think the only parting comment would be you can also email me as well. I didn't put my email in there, but if you email marketing@hospitable.com, you can also ping me an email as well. So our team will respond if there's any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Beautiful.
That's really good. Cool. Good stuff.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Sorry, we were talking over each other there. Apologies, Austin. All right, good stuff. This is proof that this whole session is completely live. All right, guys. Well, listen, have a great one. Thank you again, Miles. Really appreciate you joining us. And yeah, if anybody has any questions in the future, please feel free to reach out to us. We look forward to helping you guys out. All the best. And we'll see you in the next session.
Thanks so much.